I know how hard it is to know whether your child is practicing the right way or whether their practice really counts at the piano. And if you're making the time in your day for your child to do their practice, you want it to matter. So in this video, I'm going to give you an example of a great practice session for a 5-year-old beginner student. Watch out for the next video where I'll show you a student who's a little bit further on and a little bit older as well. The first step in any good practice session is to check what you're supposed to practice. Even if you think you know, even adult students should do this. So a 5-year-old definitely should. You'll need to open up the notes that your teacher has given you about what you should practice, whatever format that's in. Now in my studio, that is in an app called Tonara. So I have it open here and we have our assignments for our 5-year-old student self here. So what I first do is just look through everything that's on the list and make sure I have a general idea of what needs to be done. And you can do that as the parent for a 5-year-old beginner. So you can take a look through, discuss it with your child, say, oh, we have to do this and then this and then this and then this, and make sure your child is on board and they know what those assignments are. Then start at the beginning. I generally put them in order for my students so that they're in an order that it would be good to practice in. In this case, we're starting with Breath of 5, which is a little warm-up routine. And in this one, we just follow along with a video. So there's a video link there and we just watch it and follow along. If your child is a young student, they're going to need to have a footstool and be set up correctly at the bench and everything. And then they follow along with this video.
3, add 3, 2, 1. Right hand. In 1, 2, 3, 4, add 4, 3, 2, 1. Left hand. In 1, 2, 3, 4, add 4, 3, 2, 1. Float. Lap. Sitting up tall. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, add 4, 3, 2, 1.
So that's the start of our practice session done. That just sets them up at the piano in the correct way and slows down their breathing to make sure this is a relaxing experience. Next up on our list here, we have Zechariah Zebra. So this is a technique exercise, and in general, your practice will normally start, especially at the beginning, your child's practice should start with a couple of technique things. So we had our posture, finding our breath, and now we're going to warm up the fingers essentially with Zechariah Zebra. So here's what that technique looks like. And there are attached listening tracks and reminder videos in this one. So again, just make sure you check every note, especially if your child forgets it or isn't sure how it should be done. Rest, 2, 3, 4. 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 So in this case, I would do that with my right hand and then with my left hand. In total, it only takes a minute or so. After that, I have my pieces. So technique warm-ups and that kind of thing will normally be pretty minimal and pretty short for a 5-year-old beginner. So you're going to jump straight into the pieces once those are done, but make sure you get those done first. I like to then start with rote pieces, which are the memory pieces that my students do. So if your child is doing one of those, it's always really important that you listen to the listening track. This is something with all teachers who teach memory pieces like this. It's one of the hardest things is to get them to listen to the music at home. But I can tell you that my students who do listen to the tracks at home, they progress so much faster, they get so much more out of every piece. So start each session with a rote piece by listening to the music so that they can get used to the piece And they can pick up on little nuances that are in that performance that they aren't quite yet using in their own playing, but they're starting to seep in. So we listen to the full track first. It's only 16 seconds, so it's not a big commitment in this case. Okay, so you saw me bopping my head. That's me pretending to be my 5-year-old self, although not that I wouldn't head bop either otherwise, but I would encourage you to get your child moving any way that feels natural to them while they listen, or, pretending to play the piano, but they should be really listening and feeling the music in their bodies while they listen. Then it's time to practice the rote piece, and this part might not go as smoothly. Your child may have forgotten some of it, or they may not be sure of different parts. So here's how that might look. Okay, so that's just the start of it. Maybe that's all your child knows so far. I know that even if you're not a musician, you notice something wrong, extra wrong, with that last part, right? I slowed right down. That part obviously needs the most practice. So as a parent, that's something you can help with. You can encourage your child to do just that part a few times. And it can be a discovery process with them, so you don't have to be correcting them as if you're their teacher, just saying, oh, that didn't sound quite like the track to me, but the other part really did. Shall we listen to the track again and see how it sounds, or watch the reminder video? So you can start this discussion process. Practice is about figuring out the bits you need to work on and working on those, which sounds so simple, but it's hard to do in practice, especially when you're 5. So the rote piece generally goes from the start, or from whenever you're working on it, forward from there. Now our next task on our list are our 2 reading pieces, and that's it in this case, right? So we've got 2 reading pieces. I've got them open here. My Dog Fritz and Creepy Basement. Now the important part about reading pieces for a young student like this who's doing really short pieces is 2 things. Practicing in different ways. I'll say 3 things. First, reading your teacher's notes. I keep saying it, but make sure you read them. Then, 2 things. Practicing in lots of different ways, and breaking up your practice so that you can repeat it more times. So here's some examples of what I mean by that. For My Dog Fritz, maybe we could clap it. That's one way to practice it. We can play it while singing the words. My dog Fritz is so much fun. I say fetch and off he runs. Fritz and I can play all day if the rain will stay away. Or we can play and say the rhythm syllables. Ta 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 2. Or we can play and say the finger numbers. 1 2 1 2 1 1 1. Or the note names. G A G A G G G. You get what I'm saying? Lots of different vocalization while playing is really useful at this age and this stage of studies. Now you might notice, especially if you do play piano yourself or you play another instrument, that I haven't told you to break it up into sections. When we do our other video about a student who's further along, we will do that. But for a 5-year-old who's dealing with pieces that are 8 bars, a lot of the time it's basically fine to play it from start to finish, unless there's one part that's really causing an issue, and then we should spot practice that bit. But for most of them, the biggest mistake I see 5-year-old beginners make is they only play it once. So I don't mind if they play from start to finish, as long as they do it a few times at least. Now, the most effective way to do it a few times, if you have more than one reading piece, is to do A, B, A, B, A, B. We call this interleaved practice, or you can think of it like a lasagna. So we would do My Dog Fritz, and then we would do Creepy Basement. finish Creepy Basement, we go back to My Dog Fritz. And each time we do them, we can do a different thing. So we can sing the words, we can say the finger numbers, we can say the rhythm, we can say nothing, we could hum along, we could just hum the piece and not play it. So different activities every time, but we're doing this one, that one, this one, that one. If all of that sounds too complicated with the different variations on how to practice, the number one thing I want you to take away from that with reading pieces is just repeat them. At least get them in a few times. I'd say at least 5. We're talking about very short pieces here, so 5 might sound like a lot if we're thinking of longer pieces of music, but 5 times through that piece, if you're playing it at a reasonable tempo, should take like a minute. So it's not a big ask. So that is what a 5-year-old's practice should look like. Now at the bottom in Tanara, there's something I love, and it says play for fun. And whether your teacher uses Tanara or not, I'd encourage you to incorporate this. The last thing in your child's practice should be to just get some time to noodle and mess around. They can make up their own music, they can play an old piece they love, they can keep playing these pieces if they love to play those. But you have that bit of structure, you've gotten through everything on the list, and now let them spend a few minutes just messing around. All of that for a 5-year-old should take maybe 10 to 15 minutes. If they do that every day or at least 5 days a week, I think they're doing great as a beginner student. If they can do more than that, that is wonderful. And if they're motivated to do more than that, especially on some days, that's great. But try to keep that standard of getting through all those assignments and repeating things enough times, and your 5-year-old will be doing fantastically.